Dream Team. It's your boy Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with differences between Australia and America. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, hit a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Oh my god!
Differences between Australia and America that I've learned from living in Victoria. Taxes. In Australia, every product that you buy, the tax is already included in the price. Whereas in America, the tax isn't included, so you have to calculate it on your own. How we write the date.
So dumb. So why can't we just include the tax? Why can't we do that? Just include the taxes on the price so I know exactly what I'm paying instead of after paying for everything at the end and then see the taxes come up because I don't got time to calculate it in my head. It's stressing me out. Okay. I'm back to earth.
In places like Australia, we write the day, the month, and the year, whereas in America, they go month, day, and then the year, which honestly doesn't make sense. I think Australia's way is better. In America,
I think because I'm used to America, it makes more sense for me to look at it now, but which makes more sense in general would be Australia's way, and I think we're one of the only countries that write the date like that. So most other countries are writing it like date, month, year, which make because you're day, month, year, because you're going from day, week, or not day, week, day, month, year, right? From shortest to longest. It did, but we go month, day, year. I don't know why we did that, but we did. All right, keep it going.
America, this is what our power outlets look like. They're three-prong and they're on top of each other. But in Australia, they're next to each other, and they also have an on and off switch to turn the electricity on and off. The most obvious one is in Australia, they call it Macca's, whereas in America, they call it McDonald's. In America, when you get a
our nickname for it would be Mickey D's.
Soda from a fast food restaurant, you have unlimited refills. Yes. Whereas in Australia, they fill it up for you, but also you only get it once. The sizes and proportions of food in America is way bigger. These ones are American, these ones are Australian.
I guess that's why the size and proportions of Americans are also way bigger.
Menus are also totally different. In America, they have sweet tea or sweet iced tea. You also pour it yourself from these things. They also have a dollar menu in America, and it looks like this. In Australia, they have the chicken and cheese, but in America, we don't have this. They also have a dessert section at the McCafe in Australia, but in America, we don't have this. Milkshakes in America are like the equivalent to thick shakes in Australia. Milkshakes in Australia are a lot thinner. They're not as thick. In America, when you go...
She's not talking about McDonald's. She's just talking about milkshakes in general, I assume. Yeah, because I don't think we have milkshakes at McDonald's. Maybe they do. Maybe I don't know about them. I don't know.
To a restaurant or on the back of the packaging for a certain food item, they'll measure the healthiness of it with calories. But in Australia, they measure calories with kilojoules. Yes. In America,
I've gotten food from other countries where like I try to read the wrapper for the calories because I'm so used to reading calories, and it's like kilojoule, and I'm like, what? I don't know how healthy or how bad this is. I don't know what kind of calories I'm eating right now. I don't know what kilojoules, how to convert it. I don't know.
This word is not forbidden, but it's not really used. Whereas in Australia, it's almost a term of endearment, and people of all ages say it a lot. Halloween. In America, Halloween is huge. Everybody dresses up, no matter your age. We're all out on the street trick-or-treating.
Big time.
Whereas in Australia, it's mostly for the younger kids. Also, like Halloween, you'll drive around your neighborhood in America, and every single house will be decorated. In Australia, they go rock, scissors, paper, or scissors, paper, rock. But in America, they go rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Because what other country would add shoot to the end?
Why you gotta do that? Why you gotta... Why you gotta do that? Rock... yeah, we do. Because you gotta have 3 rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock... we could say like rock, paper, scissors, go. Rock, paper... But... okay, you got me on that one. Yeah. We do say shoot.
Center. In America, they spell it E-R, but in Australia, they spell it R-E. Centre. Just kidding. In America, it's really common that you have bathtubs that are also showers. Also, the toilet, shower, and sink are always in the same room. Whereas in
Yes,
Australia,
always.
the toilet is almost always in a separate room or sectioned off by a door. In America, to contact
That's different. Well, you can get like a 1.5 bath where it's like you got your shower, bathroom, you got all that in one, and then you got half, so you just got a toilet and a sink. You can get that, but it's not usual. Like when you think of bathroom, you think shower, toilet, sink. You think of all these things.
emergency services, you call 911. But in Australia, they call 000. In Australia, Father's Day is on the 6th of December. Whereas in America, it's on the 20th of June.
Huh.
In America,
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Okay.
we call this a cul-de-sac, but in Australia, they call it a court. In the States, the front of the car that you pop up, we call it the hood, but in Commonwealth countries such as Australia, they call it a bonnet.
Okay.
And as for the back, in America, we call it the trunk, but here they call it the boot. In America, the wheel is on the left-hand side of the car because they drive on the right-hand side of the road. Whereas in Australia, it's the opposite. Our wheels are on the right-hand side and we drive on the left side of the road. In America, we have pickup trucks, and that's what we call these. Whereas in Australia, they call pickup trucks ute, and they sometimes, mostly, look like
Is
this.
that a pickup truck? Yeah, a ute. It's ute. Okay.
In Australia, they call service stations petrol stations, and they're usually around this
That's the
size, so
servo.
not too big. Whereas in
servo.
Texas, they have gas stations, and they're huge. They even sold merch everyone wore at school.
Nah, stop. Not all gas stations are that big. Buc-ee's is like a certain brand of gas station. And, I mean, there's Buc-ee's in a lot of different states, and Buc-ee's is a giant gas station. And there's a couple others that are giant gas. But we do have, like, smaller gas stations. Like, we do have smaller gas stations. That's just an example of a bigger gas station.
TVs in restaurants. Every single sit-down
that's
restaurant,
facts.
and even fast food sometimes, has TVs. And yes, this many
Facts.
TVs. Whereas in
Yes, she's
Australia,
not lying.
sometimes you'll see a TV, maybe one, but rarely ever. A lot of the
She's
guys
not
have
lying.
long hair. In America, you don't see that. You rarely ever see a guy who has hair past his chin, but it's very common here. In Australia, they call these chips, but in America, they're called French fries. And they call
Love some
chips
fries.
crisps. This is Australia's most popular brand. And Lay's potato chips is America's most popular brand.
Hey,
In America,
I like
we call
Lay's.
these trash cans or garbage, and in Australia, they call it a bin. In America,
sense.
they call this season fall, and it's usually from September to November. But in Australia, they call it autumn, and it's usually from March to May.
I feel like in general we call it fall, but there's people who call it autumn as well, and so I feel like we use both of those terms. But fall, like I do agree with her. Fall in general would be used more than autumn.
In America, we call this a duvet or a quilt, depending on which state you're in, but in Australia, they call it a doona. This one's probably my favorite. In America, we call these flip-flops, but in Australia, they call them thongs. In the States, I never once saw someone use an electric kettle. Literally everyone in the state only used stovetop kettles, and we heat it up with gas. Whereas in Australia, I've only ever seen people use electric kettles. I've never seen a stovetop kettle in my 4 years here, which makes sense because you know what? It's a lot faster. Okay, this
It is a lot. I feel like we're less likely to drink like hot tea. I'm sure there's a good number of Americans, not some, a good number who do, but most of us, I feel like for the most part, don't. And so I feel like we don't really need the electric kettle. The stovetop kettles, I've never seen an electric kettle in person. I've seen stovetop kettles. Never seen an electric kettle in person. Or in any American movies, which is crazy. They always use a stovetop in the movies, which is wild. Or people, I guess, microwave the water in the microwave. Microwave water to make it hot. But yeah, electric kettles, if you're going to drink hot tea, I feel like is a necessity.
This one's really interesting because most people don't seem to know it. But in America, you can have your learner's permit at 15 and your full license by 16.
Yes, ma'am.
So it depends which state you live in, but in Texas where I lived, all you needed to be eligible to take your driver's test was 8 hours with a driving instructor.
And shout out to her for being from the great state of Texas.
Whereas in Australia, it is a whole process, an annoying process. So I live in Victoria, and the rules here are you have to be 16 to get your learner's permit. You have to sit down and take a test and get over 80%. After you pass that, you have to do 120 practice hours of driving with a parent or guardian with a full license, including 20 night hours. Then you have to pass your hazards test, which I just passed today, so yay me. Then you can take your driver's test. In America, we say
it's definitely a different process. I mean, a longer process in Australia, so you probably do have safer drivers coming out getting their license at a young age. Here, I think you can't, like what she said, you can go that route. I just waited till I was 18, took an online driving test, went in, took the actual driving test, failed the first time, came back for a second time, passed, license, boom, it's a wrap.
Adidas, but in Australia they say Adidas. In Australia they say Nike, but in America they say Nike. In America, we have this store here called TJ Maxx.
Yes.
Whereas in Australia, they have TK Maxx.
I like that.
The stores themselves sell the same stuff. The only thing different is the name. In America...
Does anybody know why that is, that the name is different? I'd be very intrigued. Same store, just why is it a J here and a K there?
We call this car brand here Hyundai. But pretty much everywhere else, they say Hyundai. In America, we have...
I call that a Hyundai. I've never in my life used Hyundai. I've never heard anybody in my life use Hyundai. That's a Hyundai.
This fast food restaurant called Burger King. In Australia, they have the exact same restaurant. Only difference is they call it Hungry Jack's. In America, the northern states call these sneakers, but in the southern states, they call them tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And in Australia, they call them runners. In America, we call this jump rope, but in Australia, they call it skipping rope. In America, we call these things popsicles, but in Australia, they call them icy poles. Some people also call them a bijingo, but I've never heard that before. In America, we call these swimsuits, but in Australia, they call them togs, cozies, or bathers. In America, they call this foursquare, but in Australia, they call it down ball or handball. In America, this is like the IT pencil that everybody uses, and we call them number 2 pencils. Yes. Whereas in Australia, I've heard a lot of people call these grey leads, but most Australians just call them pencils. In America, we call this a fire department.
Yeah, that number 2 pencil for sure. If you had a little money on you, you got to come to school with the pencils, with the lead inside the pencil where you could click them. I don't even know what that mechanical pencil, is that what we called it? I don't even remember what it was called because I rarely ever got any because I was broke. So I was using the number 2s that you could get a full pack of for very cheap. Yeah, we called it mechanical pencil. You just click the eraser down and the lead pops out. Yeah, I feel like if you had those, that means you had a little extra money. Had a little more money than us broke ones.
But in Australia, they call it the fire brigade. In America, everyone calls these grilled cheeses, but in Australia, they're called toasties. In America, we call this frosting, but in Australia, they call it icing. In America,
there's some who call it icing as well. Some who call
these ramen noodles, but in Australia, they call them 2-minute noodles. In Australia, they call these capsicums, but in America, they call them bell peppers. One of the biggest differences is the size of the school. Just for a bit of context, I lived in Texas, so our schools were huge. This was our football stadium, makeshift track. This was one of our 3 gyms, our water tank, one of the pools, the district football stadium, and part of our performing arts center.
That's crazy.
Because you can get your license at 16, most of the students drove to school. And because we had around 5,000, there was also a 3-tier parking lot. Also a band hall, an orchestra hall, and 2 auditoriums. We also had a softball and a baseball field and multiple soccer fields as well. We also had a separate cafeteria for every grade. Whereas Australian schools tend to be a lot more...
God, now I don't know what Texas school that was. She went to one of them good Texas schools. I feel like we had everything. We did have 3 gyms where I went to school, and they are still building crap onto it. So it's the high school is bigger since I graduated. But Yeah, we didn't have separate cafeterias for every grade. Uh, that's interesting. We had three different lunches, and so A lunch, B lunch, C lunch, and they were in different time periods. So same cafeteria, just different time period for lunches. Different cafeterias for each grade is insane to me.
More open. In America, you spend the whole entire day inside, whereas in Australia,
Facts.
you get a lot of time outside. This is
That's
the most
dope.
generic Texas school outfit.
Facts.
And this is pretty much every Australian school outfit for
Okay.
girls. So in America, I woke up at 6 a.m. every morning, so I would be picked up by the bus at 6:30 for a 7 a.m. start at school. Whereas in Australia, I start high school at 8:30 in the morning.
Ooh,
in America, we have
that's
7
way
subjects
better.
that we take, and we have 7 40-minute periods every day. Whereas in
Yep.
Australia, I only take 5 subjects, and we have 4 periods every day that are an hour and a half. In Australia,
In my high school, we did the hour and a half. It was we did the hour and a half, four periods every day, and then the next day you would take 4 of the other classes, and then you would just rotate them. We called them 8 days and B days because you take separate classes on each day. But now in high school, they changed it to where it's just like 7 or 8 45-minute classes, which I think is a lot better, to be honest, because to keep my attention for an hour and a half straight, then go to the next class, hour and a half straight, then hour and a half, I didn't like that. But 45 minutes, and then you switch up, I can deal with that a lot better.
we have a 20-minute recess and an hour-long lunch, both of which you spend outside.
Dang!
Whereas in America, we only got a 45-minute lunch, and we spent it in a cafeteria.
Facts.
Buying lunch at a
If you got a 45, at mine, we talking about 30 to 35.
cafeteria is a lot different to Australia as well. The cafeteria usually only makes a meal of the day, and they only have a few snack options that are usually all processed. We also have vending machines at school, and a lot of them have soda. Whereas in Australia, they have a canteen. They have so many more options, and the food is way better overall. So in Texas,
I bet the Australian food is a lot better. But they did. I'm just speaking from my school and the schools that I've been to. That you do have a meal of the day, and that was like we had like 3 different lunch lines. Like you got your meal of the day, you can go down that. You got one line was like just for sandwiches. They serve sandwiches every day. I think there was another line that served pizza every day. And then there was a line just for like snacks and stuff that you could go through. The vending machines definitely have sodas. I hated it when I was in high school though because they had just decided to switch up to no vending machines until after school, and so you couldn't get any sodas or anything during school. You had to wait till after school, which was dumb. They could have made a lot more money just letting us kids have it during school. But that's neither here nor there. Keep it going.
Texas high school, we have homecoming. Homecoming is the start of the football season, and we celebrate by having a homecoming dance. These things right here, they're called mums.
Yep.
Basically, if you've been asked to homecoming by a guy, they will give you a mum, and you will wear it on the day of homecoming.
Yeah.
It looks ridiculous seeing everybody walk around school with these
Yes.
giant things on.
Yes.
And yes, I did wear one on homecoming, and yes, it's still in my closet. We also have
Girls be proud to wear them around. Know what I'm saying? And you got a big one. Me and your man went through a lot of extra to put a lot of extra money into it. I've never bought a mom, and I've never given anybody one because I was broke.
prom and Sadie's dance. Sadie's is my favorite because it's the Valentine's Day one, and the girl asks the guy out. Whereas in Australia,
love that.
at least at my school, we have a year 10 formal and a year 12 formal, and it's usually organized by the students outside of the school. In
So
America,
dope.
there are so many options for electives. We have everything from orchestra to flower arrangements. In America,
That's
it's mandatory
crazy.
to take a second language, a sport, and an art subject. But in Australia, you don't have to. Okay, in Australia, it's pretty common that people can drop out of school to do a trade, and we call them tradies. Whereas in America, you don't really hear of people dropping out of school, and if you do, it's almost frowned upon. In America,
Yes,
we have
that's
math
facts.
class, whereas in Australia, they have maths class because it's not mathematic, it's mathematics. In Australia, we don't
makes
actually
sense.
have hallways. So in America, to get from class to class, you go through the school, through your hallways.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia, everything's outside other than your classrooms. Lunch, recess, we also have recess, but it's all outside. In
Y'all
Australia,
get recess in high school? We stopped getting recess in middle school. Was it middle school? Was it intermediate? We stopped in middle school. We stopped getting it. We had to go over to an athletics period, I guess. Do y'all get recess in high school? Just 20 minutes. Y'all get to just like kind of chill, do your own thing.
Yeah, students can pretty much get away with swearing in class, swearing in front of teachers, that kind of stuff. In America, at least the schools I went to, that was not tolerated at all, and it was a straight up detention.
Facts.
In America, you'd ask the teacher to go to the restroom, whereas in Australia, you'd ask to go to the toilet. In Australia, we don't have school shootings, whereas in America. So in America, we have water fountains, and that's the equivalent to these, which in Australia, they call them drink taps, and they look like that. In Australia, this deodorant is called Lynx. But in America, the same spray, same company, just has a different name. It's called Axe. Yes. In Australia, they call dried grapes sultanas, but in America, we call them raisins.
Is a raisin just a dry grape? I feel so dumb for not knowing that. Okay. I did not know
that. In America, we call these markers, and the most popular brand is Crayola. But in Australia, they call them textures, and the most popular brand is Faber-Castell. Lastly, avocados. So in Australia, they abbreviate it, and they usually just say avo, whereas in America, we say the full word. Also, they're a lot cheaper in Texas, usually like 60 cents, but $1 to $2 here.
What is that? Oh. Well, that's all we got for that one. She pointed out a lot of differences, and I think she pretty much hit the nail on the head throughout the entire video. I've never been to Australia, so I guess I can't speak for Australian schools and the differences, but she hit the American side on the head, a nail on the head for sure. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy D Neal. Out.